Okay, well, welcome to the class tonight. Don't know if I'm lucky or not that I get to talk about balancing hormones. Many of you may be thinking, he's a guy, what does he know about hormones? Well, I have lived with women most of my life and been married to one for 20 years, so that does give me a little bit of understanding, but I'll try to keep the hormone jokes to a minimum. So tonight we're going to talk about balancing your hormones naturally, and before we get into how to balance them, what I want to do is talk a little bit about what are hormones and where do they come from and why are they needed and things like that. So we're going to get started right here. Maybe we will. See if I can get my slide to advance. There we go. So what are hormones? Well, hormones are a chemical that is released by a cell or a gland in your body, and that chemical sends out a message that can affect other parts of the body, either directly or indirectly. Really what it is it's a chemical messenger that is a signal transponder. Cells respond to hormones when they express a specific receptor to that hormone. So there are cells in the body that do not have estrogen receptors, for example. So no matter how much estrogen you have in your body, those particular cells won't respond to it. Now, the thing of it is almost every cell in the body has some receptor that is used for hormones. Some of them are activated, some of them are put to sleep, but ultimately every hormone in the body affects or has the potential to affect every other cell. And that's what's pretty cool about hormones, is they can do a whole number of things. This quote by Dr. Josh Axe at the bottom just says, every hormone is affected by the level of another hormone. So where do hormones come from? Well, there's a part of your body called the endocrine system. An endocrine system includes all the glands and the hormones produced by those glands. The glands are controlled directly by stimulation from the nervous system, as well as by chemical receptors in the blood and hormones produced by other glands. So there's three different ways that the endocrine system is stimulated: by the nervous system, by hormones circulating in the blood, and by hormones that are secreted by other glands. And by regulating the functions of the organs in the body, these glands help maintain the body's homeostasis, or balance, ultimately. Cellular metabolism, reproduction, sexual development, sugar and mineral homeostasis, heart rate, digestion, all of these things are regulated, when it comes right down to it, by hormones. So what does a hormone balance look like? Well, when you add up all these things, you may think it looks like crazy. These are just some of the symptoms that can be expressed if your hormones are out of balance. There are others that we'll see on a couple of other different slides, but just about anything that can go wrong in the body could be blamed on a hormone imbalance. Here's a couple of other things, more hormone specific. So for example, if you have low estrogen, chances are you've got hot flashes or night sweats or incontinence, vaginal dryness. However, if you have estrogen dominance or too much estrogen in your body, those are some of the things that can happen, as you see there on the screen. Adrenal hormones, of which there are almost hundreds of them, these can be knocked out of balance for one reason or other, and therefore give you symptoms like stress, difficulty sleeping, irritability, nervousness, fibromyalgia, allergies, etc., etc. Thyroid hormone. A lot of people in the US, and for that matter across the world, have thyroid issues. Those are some of the things that can happen if your thyroid hormones are out of balance. Metabolic syndrome or high androgens. Now, androgen is typically a male sex hormone. It's the equivalent of estrogen or progesterone in the female. So males have androgens, of which testosterone is one. And then low androgens. So if you have too low a level of androgens, you can have all sorts of things. I mean, look at that, ringing in the ears. How does a sex hormone produce ringing in the ears? It's just how they affect the body from one side or the other. So How do you know if your hormones are too high or if they're too low? There's a couple of different ways to do it, and they can be tested for. Now, serum testing, or when they draw blood and run the blood through a couple of different tests, can be accurate, but it's not the most accurate. Blood hormones, or hormones that are in the serum of the blood, typically bind to the proteins that are in the blood. And as a result, about 90% of the hormones in the body don't show up on a serum blood test. Serum tests show how much hormone is free floating in the blood that is not bound to those proteins. So it's not a very good, accurate indicator of your hormone levels. Serum tests are better for late stage illnesses or problems as a result of too much or too little hormone for a long period of time. The more accurate, more rapid test that they're using nowadays is a saliva test. And it really shows ultimately how much hormone is in your body at any one given time. So earlier this year, I modeled for this picture that you see here on the right of your screen. I thought it turned out pretty good. I didn't really get my nose right, but pretty much everything else is accurate. Oh, I'm just kidding. The adrenal glands sit right above your kidneys, as is indicated in the diagram there. And the adrenal glands produce more than 50 different hormones, driving almost every function in your body. The adrenal glands are responsible for balancing those hormones. And there's 3 different types of hormones that the adrenal glands produce. And those 3 are broken down further into smaller subcategories. But glucocorticoids are responsible for your blood sugar, metabolism, managing stress, and your immune response. You've probably heard of the hormone cortisol. We'll talk a little bit more about that in detail coming up. But cortisol is a type of glucocorticoid. Mineralocorticoids, these are hormones that help maintain healthy blood pressure. They help manage blood hydration levels by keeping your salts and your waters in balance. An example of a mineralocorticoid would be aldosterone. Excuse me. And then adrenaline. Adrenaline is one that most people have heard of before. It's a type of hormone that affects your heart health and makes sure that the rest of the body parts are getting the blood that they need, and that adrenaline helps convert glycogen into glucose in your liver. Now, what glycogen is it's just glucose or blood sugar stored in fat. There's a high percentage of your liver is dedicated to storing glycogen. Your muscle tissue also stores glycogen. So when your body, or more specifically when your adrenal gland secretes adrenaline, what that does is that converts that glycogen that's stored in your fat, in your liver, and in your muscle tissues. What that ends up doing is it converts glycogen into glucose, and glucose is the fuel that your body uses for just about every single thing that it does. So cortisol, adrenaline, there's a bunch of different hormones that we're going to talk about. But I just want to, we don't have time to go into detail about all of these, but I just want to hit the popular ones, or the ones that most people hear about on a somewhat regular basis. The adrenal glands, as we just talked about, they act as your body's shock absorbers. They produce adrenaline and cortisol, which ultimately is responsible for your fight or flight response. So if you look in your rearview mirror as you're driving down the road and you see red and blue flashing lights, what happens? Your heart rate increases, your breathing increases, you start freaking out, right? You have a stress response, and that stress response is the flight or fight response. And your adrenal glands are in charge of getting those things fired up, getting ready to either fight or flight, neither of which I would recommend if you are being pulled over by a police officer. Over time, though, if you are in a prolonged state of fight or flight, or a prolonged chronic stress state, what ends up happening is your body produces or secretes too much cortisol. And as your adrenal glands continue to produce more and more cortisol, ultimately they're going to be wiped out. You're going to overwork them. You're going to lead to something that most people are starting to call adrenal fatigue or adrenal exhaustion, where the body is unable to maintain an adequate adrenal hormone production. Now, this is what's interesting is this next two bullet points. The adrenals contribute to about 35% of premenopausal female hormones and almost 50% of postmenopausal hormones. And compromised adrenal function profoundly affects hormone balance. So if you're in a chronic state of stress, whether you're pre or postmenopausal, what's going to happen is the rest of your hormones are going to start becoming and staying out of balance. And that's where you can get into some of those crazy symptoms that we talked about a couple slides ago. Now, this next bullet point says progesterone is the primary raw material for producing cortisol. So when the adrenal glands are in overdrive or in chronic stress, the body will take progesterone away from the other organs and tissues in the body and send it to the adrenal gland to try to produce more and more cortisol. So if you don't have extra progesterone, what's going to happen is your body is going to go into an estrogen dominant state. And what does high estrogen typically equate to? Big time PMS symptoms, hot flashes, night sweats, migraines, fibroids, heavy bleeding, breast tenderness, weight gain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the negative type of symptoms that are associated with hormone imbalance come as a result of having too much estrogen in your bloodstream, too much estrogen circulating throughout your body. And progesterone works as a balancer for estrogen. So if you have a high amount of estrogen coursing through your body, the body's going to try to produce progesterone to try to balance it out. But your body, being as smart as it is, thinks that it needs cortisol more than leveling out your estrogen levels. So what's going to happen is your progesterone is going to go to your adrenal glands to try to make more cortisol because you're in a chronic stress state than it would be to try to balance out your estrogen. Says down here, excessive cortisol also blocks progesterone receptors, further contributing to low progesterone. And then those two imbalances are the primary reason why adrenal exhaustion leads to estrogen dominance. So it's interesting how these things all become intertwined. Here's a couple of symptoms that can be attributed to adrenal fatigue. And again, adrenal fatigue is ultimately a result of chronic stress and other poor lifestyle choices. Being exposed to a lot of toxins, negative emotions, lack of sleep, poor diet, lack of exercise, all of those different types of things can cause the adrenal glands to wig out or become exhausted or fatigued. And when that happens, these type of symptoms show up. And I would guess that most people, whether it is as a result of one thing or another, have a, I'm sorry, I'm listening to just outside my door, my little girl's crying and Tiffany's trying to calm her down, so apologize for that. At one point or other throughout the period of the week or even the month, I'd say a lot of people are cycling in and out of these type of symptoms because their adrenal glands are so fatigued. So what do you do to help support your adrenals? There's a couple of different things. Number one, eat good foods, foods that heal and not harm. So limit or avoid sugar, processed foods, or foods with other types of toxins. Get your carbohydrates from vegetables, not so much from processed grains. Limit your caffeine intake in order to calm the body down. A lot of people don't understand that when you drink caffeine, whether it's in the form of coffee or an energy drink, those types of things, that kicks your body into a state of fight or flight. And if you have more than 1 cup or a can of those types of drinks a day, your adrenal glands are really being punished, and they're trying to secrete more and more cortisol to deal with the stimulation. And as a result, it can lead to adrenal fatigue. There's some supplements that provide good nutrition and adrenal boosting nutrients, particularly vitamins B, C, and D. We'll talk about C and D a little bit later, but those are really good. Zinc and magnesium. So ultimately, it boils down to taking Lifelong Vitality is an excellent way to support the adrenal glands, and we should be taking Lifelong Vitality anyway. So if you haven't started taking Lifelong Vitality or haven't felt that you need it, give this a thought. By taking Lifelong Vitality, you can actually help support your adrenal glands, which ultimately may come into balancing your hormones. And then stress reduction. How do you reduce stress with essential oils? Check it out. Balance, frankincense, cedarwood, lavender, vetiver, your citrus oils, sandalwood, all of those different types of oils are going to be calming to the nervous system. And as your nervous system calms down, your adrenal glands calm down. Exercise. Use your Slim and Sassy oil blend. Use Motivate before exercise and Beet Blue after exercise. And then use the Serenity lavender, the Serenity capsules, those types of things to help you get good, restful sleep, because your body resets and regenerates as you sleep. Okay, thyroid. We just finished with the adrenal gland. Thyroid hormones. These are all hormones that help your organs work well by controlling how your body uses the food that you're eating for energy. So thyroid hormones help determine how much of the food you eat is stored in the form of glycogen in your liver and muscle tissues, or if it's going to be used immediately upon eating it. Ultimately, the thyroid is what regulates or controls metabolism. And it says here, it may reduce its own hormonal activity in an attempt to reverse adrenal overdrive. So if you are in a constant state of chronic stress, your thyroid is going to secrete less thyroxine and thyroid hormone in an attempt to try to calm things down. If you have high thyroid hormone, you have high metabolism, so that's going to cause your adrenal glands to work overtime to try to maintain that high metabolism. So if you are under a chronic state of stress, what ends up happening? Well, your thyroid secretes less thyroid hormone, and as a result, you don't burn through all the sugars you're eating, so it is stored as fat. If you want to lose weight, get your thyroid hormones under control. If you want to get your thyroid hormones under control, get your adrenal glands back to normal. If you want to get your adrenal glands back to normal, do those things that we just talked about on that last slide. Another interesting thing about thyroid hormone, as it says in that last bullet point, is that thyroid hormone receptor sites are similar to estrogen and progesterone receptor sites. And those sites on the cell, it's kind of like a lock and a key. Think of a receptor site on a cell as the keyhole, and the hormone is the key that slides into that hole. So that's a receptor site. And not all keys fit in all locks, right? Well, the thyroid hormone and estrogen and progesterone hormones, their lock are very similar, so the keys can fit in there. So what this last statement is saying is that estrogen and progesterone receptor sites can be blocked in an estrogen dominant situation. So the thyroid key won't fit in the lock that it needs to, and then that can ultimately lead to larger imbalance in the thyroid hormone. So here's a couple of symptoms that can be showing up if a person has low or high thyroid issues. You can take a look at those. There is an essential oil blend that helps support thyroid. 10 drops of clove and myrrh, 8 drops of frankincense and lemongrass. Put them in one of those 10 ml roller bottles, fill the rest with coconut oil, and apply topically to the thyroid and the bottom of your feet 3 times a day. Now, everybody knows where the bottom of your feet are, I hope. The thyroid sits right here, okay, right below the Adam's apple in males or the base of the neck in females. So you can just roll that essential oil blend across the lower part of the front of your neck. So there's that. Okay, estrogen and progesterone. These two probably get the most press or the most attention when we're talking about hormone imbalance. And it's the roller coaster that these two go through every month that sometimes can lead to the fun things around the period of your cycle. Okay, so this little chart here, most women are on a 28-day cycle. And as you can see, if I can get my pointer here, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but when you begin your period, you have a slowing down or a diminishment of estrogen. And then as you approach ovulation, your estrogen level will spike. And then right after you ovulate, after your ovaries release the egg, your estrogen level dips by quite a bit. And as a result of that dipping of estrogen, progesterone then begins to be secreted in a high amount, which carries you through the rest of the month. Okay. Now, a couple of things that can happen with progesterone and estrogen. I know there's a lot of text on here, and I don't necessarily want to read it all, but maybe you could push pause and take a look at it if you're watching this recording. But estrogen decreases pain perception. It preserves bone mass. And it also does a lot of good things with cholesterol. So just because there's estrogen in the body doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just gets blamed for a lot of issues that women have to deal with. And in some ways, men too, right? Most of your progesterone is produced by your ovaries. However, your adrenal glands, the peripheral nerves, and even some of your brain cells produce a small amount of estrogen as well. So estrogen aids in the development and function of secondary sex characteristics. In the brain, estrogen binds to certain receptor sites to exert a calming and sedating effect. And it improves sleep, and in some studies have shown that it protects against seizures as well, which is a pretty good thing, right? Now, progesterone, on the other hand, it enhances the sensitivity of the body to insulin and thyroid hormone. So when progesterone is in the body and it's not being taken away by the adrenal glands to try to produce more cortisol, what it does is it helps make insulin and thyroid hormone work better, okay? It builds bone, it blocks plaque formation in the blood vessels, it lowers triglyceride levels, which is very good. Progesterone can also increase libido and contribute to the efficient use of fat as a source of energy. So progesterone is one of those things that helps the body take that glycogen that's stored, that glucose that's stored, and release it into the body for the use of fuel. Excuse me. Now, as we talk about estrogen, there's a couple of different types of estrogen. Two, ultimately. There's endogenous estrogen and there's exogenous estrogen. Endogenous estrogen is the estrogen that your body creates in the ovaries, in the brain, in those areas that we just talked about. Hang on, I'm just answering a text right here for one of the people on the call. Just a moment. There we go. So endogenous is what your body creates. Exogenous is things that come from outside of the body, inside of the body. And there's two types of exogenous estrogen. The first one are phytoestrogens. Now, these are estrogens that are derived from plants. And what's I think is interesting, because I'm a guy and I'm logical, phytoestrogens actually don't contain estrogen per se, which is interesting. But what phytoestrogens do is they take the receptors for estrogen, that lock, and they're able to remove anything that was in the lock so your endogenous estrogen can fit right in there. So phytoestrogens cleanse the receptor sites, and they so this is a very beneficial thing to have, is to get around a good high quality phytoestrogen, because it'll help your body be more receptive to the estrogen that your body's already making. And then the second type are called xenoestrogens. Xeno means foreign or fake estrogens. And these are typically synthetic chemical compounds that are structurally similar to estrogen. And they act as false messengers and interfere with normal hormone activity. So it would be like having your lock, and a xenoestrogen would be like a key that fits in it, but it doesn't do anything, or that just blocks the keyhole so your real estrogen can't enter. And when that happens, it affects hormone levels in the bloodstream. Anytime that they block receptor sites and interfere with the proper intake of endogenous estrogen, or what your body's producing, it's going to kick things out of balance. Interesting point here is these xenoestrogens are 100 to almost 1,000 times more competitive to the receptor site than our body's own natural estrogen. So if you have a xenoestrogen, let's say my left hand is the xenoestrogen, and my right hand is the receptor site in our cells for estrogen, this xenoestrogen has 100 to 1,000 times more affinity to that receptor site than our normal estrogen. So it takes regular estrogen would not be able to bind to that receptor site. It's being blocked. So that's why these phytoestrogens are so important, is these phytoestrogens help clean off those receptor sites so regular estrogen can fit in there. Okay, so let's say that we've got a bunch of xenoestrogens circulating through our bloodstream, and these xenoestrogens are blocking these receptor sites that desire and want estrogen. So these receptor sites, these parts of our body, these cells that need estrogen aren't getting it. So they're sending messages to the nervous system to say, hey, we need more estrogen down here. We're not getting any. So the body dumps more estrogen in. The estrogen's being blocked continually. So the cell sends another message up to the brain. The brain dumps more estrogen. The estrogen can't be utilized because the xenoestrogens are blocking the site. It's this cycle. So over time, what can happen is you become estrogen dominant, meaning you have so much estrogen coursing through your body, but it has nowhere to go. It can't be utilized because the receptor sites are being blocked. So these are some symptoms that are typically found in someone that has estrogen dominance. Quite a list of things, right? And these are some disorders that are related to xenohormones, or these hormones that are fake or foreign. A lot of illnesses or conditions can be attributed to these xenohormones, which are pretty rough stuff. The salt, I'm sorry, I'm getting text saying someone's trying to watch the video, but they can't. I'll finish with the recording and she could watch it on a playback. Hopefully I've got it recording, right? So excess estrogen can lead to different things, okay? And these are the lists of the things that they could lead to. Now, unfortunately, men can also become estrogen dominant, and it's most commonly caused by obesity, being overweight, alcoholism, or excess exposure to xenoestrogens. These xenoestrogens can block the receptor sites for testosterone. And so when testosterone can't get into the cell because of these xenoestrogens or xenohormones, what ends up happening is that gentlemen could have a low sex drive, impotency, infertility, gynecomastia, weight gain, and even develop testicular cancer over time. So how do you avoid or get rid of these xenoestrogens? Number one, avoid plastics. The water bottles, the microwaving your leftovers in Tupperwares, everything that we are surrounded by, all these plastics everywhere. Avoid alcohols, parabens, DEA, MEA, TEA, ureas, all of these different things, cosmetics, stuff like that. Many of the household cleaners that you buy at the grocery store contain xenoestrogens. So make homemade cleaners. Thank goodness for doTERRA, right? Eat local, organic, raw foods. Avoid GMO products. This is particularly GMO unfermented soy products. You'll see these show up in ingredient list as hydrolyzed vegetable proteins, lecithin, starch, and vegetable oil. Get candida under control. Candida overgrowth, a byproduct of candida, are these xenoestrogens. And then block the receptor sites with pomegranate and non-GMO fermented soy. So you can help clear or block xenoestrogens from binding to your receptor sites by having pomegranate or non-GMO fermented soy as part of your diet. And then maintain a healthy GI tract. We talk about Terrazyme and PB Assist Plus and the PB Assist Junior for kids. Those types of things help maintain a good balance of candida in your body. And then there are a couple essential oil options, right? Clary Column is a good one. And this is a list of the oils that are in Clary Column. Really good ones. Rose and patchouli, both of which are found in Whisper, decrease adrenaline in the bloodstream by 30%, which is amazing. You can support the adrenal glands with lavender, serenity, balance, bergamot, or those ones that we talked about earlier. Grapefruit oil boosts progesterone. So if you're estrogen dominant, you want to clear off your receptor sites first, right? And then increase the amount of progesterone that your body's utilizing, because progesterone, as it increases, estrogen will decrease. Okay. And when you increase progesterone, your body, it says here, I should say, excuse me, grapefruit inhibits the cortisol from using progesterone to produce more progesterone. So you could put it in a capsule, you could take it in your water, you could apply it topically, however you want to get it inside you, you can do that. Now this phytoestrogen, the Lifetime Complex that doTERRA has put out, is fantastic for cleaning off those receptor sites so your body's endogenous estrogen can be utilized rather than relying on other exogenous sources. But I shouldn't say but. So utilizing this phytoestrogen complex is a great way to help your body utilize its own endogenous hormones. Okay. Quote from Dr. Hill: with phytoestrogens, we don't have to figure out if we're estrogen dominant or deficient. Phytoestrogens are adaptogenic and they help regulate the body. And I've heard Dr. Hill say on more than one occasion that men need phytoestrogens almost as much as women do. So don't be afraid to get your guy on these phytoestrogens and tell him that phytoestrogens don't have any estrogens in them. So I don't know why they call it that. But anyway, he doesn't have to worry about developing breasts or anything by taking a phytoestrogen. Bone Nutrient is another one that is formulated with bioavailable forms of natural nutrients, including vitamin C and D, calcium, magnesium, and a bunch of other trace minerals. It's scary, but the amount of declining bone density in the older female population is very alarming. They've shown that Bone Nutrient, when taken with phytoestrogen, is the most effective way to balance your hormones. This is where I wanted to talk about vitamin C and D for just a little bit. Researchers found that vitamin C stimulated almost 100% regeneration of estrone, which is a form of estrogen, more than 50% of progesterone, and almost 60% of testosterone. So if you are trying to figure out your hormone levels, and if you're low in some of those, just by taking vitamin C will help your body start to regenerate its hormone producing ability. It's pretty fascinating. This next point is interesting as well. 70% of all women who have cancer are found to be vitamin D deficient. There's been a few studies on vitamin D over the last 5 years or so that has shown that vitamin D prevents breast cancer cell growth and decreases the expression of cancer-causing genes. So if you are concerned about breast cancer or other cancer, if it's predominant in your family, for example, I would be for increasing the amount of vitamin D pretty darn quick. I'm not saying that it would prevent all cancer growth, but vitamin D, we get so little of it as we are inside all day at the office or in our cars. We're not getting enough exposure to sunlight, and our body typically will make vitamin D as a result of sunlight coming in contact with melanin in our skin and going through a couple of different metabolic steps. But our body can make vitamin D if we're exposed to sufficient sunlight. If we're not exposed to sufficient sunlight, then my goodness, we got to take vitamin D in a capsule form to get our body enough of it. This statement here, Joellen Welsh is a researcher in New York, and she studied the effects of vitamin D on cancer cells for 25 years, and she believes vitamin D might be just as powerful as the most modern anti-cancer drugs. And you can pick it up from doTERRA in the Bone Nutrient Complex and in Lifelong Vitality. Wow. POS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, I should say PCOS, is one of the leading causes of infertility, and most women with PCOS are deficient in vitamin D. Okay. So how do you get these products that we just talked about? Well, if you've been with doTERRA for any period of time, you know the best way to do it is using your product points. Most of us have a little slush fund of product points that we could use for free product. And if you don't have product points, well, you can buy them outright and get points in the process for the next month or down the road. Product points through doTERRA are a fantastic way to use to get your essential oil products. And maybe I'll play this video. It just popped up. I don't know if it'll translate into you being able to see it or not, but we can give it a try. So here we go.
If you have already experienced doTERRA essential oils and products, you will be wondering how you can get your hands on some. Let's look at the best ways to get the most product for the lowest price. The best way to get essential oils is by signing up as a wellness advocate yourself. When you sign up as a wellness advocate, after paying a small initial fee, you'll be able to purchase your oils at wholesale prices. That's 25% below retail. You will also be able to participate in the Loyalty Rewards Program, which is a reoccurring monthly order that you can customize so that you never run out of the essential oils that you love. With LRP orders, not only do you receive wholesale pricing, you also receive an additional 10 to 30% of your total purchase in free product points. What are product points? These points can be cashed in for more doTERRA products. In other words, when you sign up for the Loyalty Rewards Program, you're signing up to receive more products for free. These points accumulate from each LRP order you place. The percentage that you earn is based on the type of kit you purchase when you sign up as a wellness advocate and will grow every quarter until you reach a maximum of 30%. And when you place your order online, you earn 100% of your shipping costs back as points. Now, if you still want to qualify for more free product, you can participate in our Product of the Month club. Each product has been assigned a value of personal volume. When your PV reaches 125, we will send you our pre-selected product of the month. The higher the PV of each order, the more chances you will have to qualify for the product of the month and any other promotions that doTERRA offers throughout the year. So, what is the best way to get your doTERRA essential oils? First, sign up to be a wellness advocate so that you can purchase at wholesale prices. Then create a loyalty rewards order and receive up to 30% of your order back as product points. Don't forget to order online so that you can receive 100% of your shipping costs back as more points. And finally, make sure that your order totals at least 125 points so that you can be a part of the product of the month run.
All right, so I don't know if you were able to see that or hear that or anything, but ultimately my last slide just shows that these three products that we talked about, the Bone Nutrient, the Phytoestrogen, and the Clary Calm, are available as a woman's kit for under $70, which is a fantastic deal. And if you can use your product points on that, even better, right? So anyway, that is the extent of my women's hormone seminar or webinar, if you will. Hopefully you were able to hear and see everything. If not, shoot us an email and we'll figure it out and maybe have to try to do it again at another time. Anyway, thanks for watching. Look forward to seeing you again. Bye.